Thank you for logging in today. My name is Linda Lovisa, and today I'm going to be demonstrating one of the most beautiful times of the year in the Okanagan Valley, a cherry orchard. I'm just going to set my timer, and thanks for joining in today. I have got it set for about 20 minutes or so, and let's see how this evolves in 20 minutes. Now what I did is I just kind of mapped it out. Mapping out means basically just drawing it in. Now, normally I would give my canvas a tonal wash, but because I'm just doing a very, very short amount of time, I didn't want to give it a yellow tonal wash or a red tonal wash, because then that would transfer into the beautiful blue tones in this, the blues and the violets in this beautiful photo. Now, I'm going to get started with the sky right away. So I've got my brush loaded with some white and the cerulean blue. So it's going to give me a soft blue, and I'm going to cut this mountain down a little bit, like so. Now those, just in case you're wondering, those marks that I drew on my canvas when I first laid it out are not going to show. Now I've heavily loaded my brush with that beautiful blue, the cerulean blue, and I'm going to just bring that mountain down just a little bit. Just bring it down a little, like so, and up like that. There we go. And how easy was that? Now I've got a lovely sky, and notice how I haven't taken my brush and just gone straight across for my sky. I always cross hatch my sky in, and I find that it does give your sky a lot nicer finish. And let's lighten this right here a little by adding more white. Now there is a low cloud on that. You can do whatever you want with your sky. Whether you want to bring those clouds in or not, it's entirely up to you. It's your painting, and you have that license to be able to alter how you want to represent it. I'm going to pick up a little bit more blue and add to the corners. And I'm just going to turn this down a little bit. Sorry about that, everyone. One of those things that, there we go, that's better. Now we won't have anybody trying to get a hold of me. And often on Mondays is when my students get a hold of me for critiques, and that is one of the things that is really loved by my students, is that they have a critique time at various times during their painting, that they can call me or notify me that they would like me to have a look at something, so that they continue working on their artwork. Now there we go. Isn't that pretty already? Now this is going to be violet. So what I did was I just offloaded my brush here, and I'm going to pick up cobalt blue this time, and a little bit of the red medium. So not too much red, and I'm just going to dot it on there, and that's quite a bit of red actually, but I'm just going to make it work. There we go. Add more white, and it's going to give me that beautiful mountainy blue color, purpley blue, that the mountains have various times of the day, and of course that changes all the time. There we go, and now we have a mountain. How easy was that? And just bring that in. So that was just the blue and the red and the white, and there you go, and you mix it right here. So notice the variety of color. Now that is the advantage of mixing on your canvas, because I've got some that's like a pinky purple, some of it is a darker purple, and that is the advantage of double loading or triple loading in this case, because it was the blue and the red and the white, your brush. Now I can lighten this area here just by picking up a little bit of that unbleached white and just do something like this. The mountain is way off in the distance. So you just hints of earth tones appearing. So I just do a little bit at a time, not to overpower, and it's blending in so nicely. There we go. Now while I have that color on my brush, I'm just going to bring some of that color down here onto the road and just offload my brush here. Now I'm going to pick up some of the red light, and not too much. I didn't rinse my brush, notice, and because I want a tan color for the road. And here we go with some yellow medium, and I'm just going to deposit that color there. And I also want some of the unbleached white, and I'm going to deposit that there. Now this brush has blue, red, yellow, and then the unbleached white, and it also has some white on it from before, but look at that beautiful earth tone that it's giving me. And now I do have some shadows that will be cast on there a little bit later, so let's just bring in a little bit more of that unbleached white and just pull it over. Now our main goal at the moment is just to get the road and such blocked in, and of course the orchard blocked in. So I'm going to bring in a little bit more light, and notice how I picked up on the edge of the road is here and over here. Often when people are putting their roads in, they tend to make this area too narrow. So this is going to really lead you in and give you the correct perspective. I'm just going to bring in a little bit more light here using the titanium white, and I'm just bringing that in like this. There we go. Notice how I haven't put anything here. I'm just going to just bring in some spots of color, because once I get the shadow colors in there, that road is going to totally change. So let's bring in a little bit more. So now the grasses on the edges are just really just starting to grow. So I'm picking up some of the yellow medium along with a little bit of that cerulean blue. And the cerulean blue is used up here, so I want to carry some of that down into my painting. And it's going to give me a really nice green on the edges here. And it's not like a really bright green just yet, so it's mixing in with the unbleached white really nicely. And let's bring that over here. Now I'm just going to grab another brush. Let's see, this one right here, and bring in the lake. I could have brought that in a little sooner. So we can see Okanagan Lake here. So I'm picking up the colors in the sky. So that's the cerulean blue with the white. I didn't mix it on my palette, just picked up the color and deposited it onto my canvas. I'm going to carry it right through, even though you can't see it in my image because the tree's in the way. What if I decide not to put that many leaves or that many flowers or whatever? At least you have your lake is there. Now set that brush down for a few minutes. There we go. And just going to add a little bit more here. Now let's get those trees in there. Now you're probably wondering, how on earth are you going to get all those little tiny blossoms in there? Well, first of all, you start off with the green of the tree. So I'm going to set this brush aside, and because I might need it again later, I'm just giving it a dip and setting it on my palette. Now let's get some of that green in there. So I'm going to use the yellow medium. Notice how I've picked it up on one side, and I'm using the ultramarine blue on the other, and I'm going to start just by depositing. I know you're probably thinking, oh my God, that is so dark. Remember, start dark and work to light. And so that's exactly what we're doing here. And notice how I'm not bringing any of the branches over just yet, just getting the base established. So more blue and yellow. That's ultramarine blue and yellow medium. And I'm just going to keep on bringing that right straight down and right up to the water, right up to the lake. And over here too. Now this side is more in shadow. Our light is coming in this way. So this side is going to have darker greenery. And you're probably wondering, like, okay, well, like, where's the tree trunks? Well, they're kind of hidden by all the blossoms, and those will come in a little bit later. But you really don't see the tree trunks at all because they come right low down. I'm picking up yellow light now, and notice how I have a really good amount, and I'm going to deposit here. So I'm going to go like this and go right up to that water's edge and bring that down a little bit more, and you can see that I can probably add a little bit more water there. So I'm going to pick up my brush, and notice how my brush was ready to go, and I can add a little bit more water right here. Bring that down like so. There we go. There we are. And that will add to the perspective of things. Bring that down and set that brush aside. You never know when you're going to need it again. And let's continue on with the lighter green for those trees. And down here there's more of a shadow because the branches are lower there, creating a shadow. And at the top, of course, the branches are getting more light. And pull that color over. And I'll add some darker colors there in a few minutes. Now let's bring some of that yellow light over here. And notice how I'm starting to shape some of the branches over and carrying it over. And let's pick up some more color and start to bring that right up. Goes right up above the horizon line way back there, and just do something like that and bring that up. And there we go. And I'm going to carry it across as well. Now you're probably thinking, okay, well, I thought there was cherry blossoms, you know, happening in here. There are. And I've got to establish what's the underpainting, which is the green hues first. And then I'll start to add the lighter flowers after that. And let's bring in a bit more color over here. Now I am painting without my glasses on, so I'm hoping that this is looking okay from your perspective. And I'm just going to put my glasses on so I can check it out for myself in a moment here. Just want to get this in here like that. Just start to bring that in like this. Bring that down. And let me have a look. See if I have enough paint. And I can see that I don't. So when I'm standing back, I can't tell if I've got enough paint. Bring in a bit more here. There we go, bring it right up. Whoops, too high there. That's okay. There we are. Start to bring in some of the lighter greens in here as well. Now I will be revisiting all of this, just so you know I can't do, you know, an entire painting in 20 minutes, not this size, and not to the degree that I would love to do this painting, but you're going to get a really good idea on how to start and how to work towards. Now I've added red to my brush, and the red and the green, of course, are complements. There we go. So they're creating some beautiful shadow areas there, like so. I'm going to add some of that in here too, and go like this, creating some depth in the tree. There we go. Now you're probably thinking, oh my goodness, I have to paint like a mad painter because I'm painting so fast. No, you don't have to paint like a mad painter. I'm painting like a mad painter because I have to do this in a quick amount of time so that you have an idea on how to approach a specific subject. But when you're working on your own painting, just make sure you're using enough paint, and take several breaks, because those breaks really do make a difference. And let's bring that in. Now those trees are starting to get some dimension and a little bit of red light. The cherry tree bark is actually quite reddish. It's almost pinky color. And I picked up some of that unbleached white that we used over here earlier, just on a different brush. And I'm just going to bring in something like this. And just bring in some branches that I can see. There we go. Now that's what happens when I put my glasses on. I start to see things. And maybe a little bit too soon for some of the details, but I do want you to get an idea on how all of this kind of evolves. There we go. And set that brush down for a minute. Now I'm going to pick up the brush that I loaded with the blue and the white earlier, and let's get some purples in here. So I'm going to pick up the ultramarine blue and the red medium, and I'm just going to deposit and just pull that color in like so, and pull that color in. Now notice how I'm using a violet here. Violet and your earth, your soft yellow of the road, the soft earth tones of the road complement each other. And I'm just going to bring that right up to the road, like so. And more color on my brush. So the darkest part of the shadow is always what's closest. And as the shadow extends out, it's always going to get a little bit lighter. Now, it might not show that way in your reference photo, but that is how it is in natural light. So there is light within the shadows, if you want to look at it that way. And as your shadows extend out further, they become lighter, even though it's a shadow color. So as it's closer, it's darker. As you pull your shadows out a little further, it's lighter. And the shadow goes way out here, way over here. And now let's bring in some of those darker, just pulling in ultramarine blue and the red, and I'm pulling it in a little bit more blue, just because there's a little bit more white on my brush, and start to pull that, integrate both the light, the medium, and the dark shadows, and pull, pull, pull into your trees. Now, starting to get an idea of what the scene's going to look like. I'm also going to just do some swatches over here for the shadows under the trees. And I'm just picking up some of that color over there, not too much. And just want to bring in a little bit more color over here. Now, how am I going to integrate the two of them together here? And I'm just going to hit that for a minute. There we go. Now I'm going to go back to the brush that I was using earlier with that earth tone on it. And I'm going to start to pull that in. Now this has a little bit of red on it, the red light. I'm going to add a little bit more yellow to that, just a tiny bit. And I'm going to start to pull that in. Too much yellow, add more of the unbleached white. There we go. And start to bring in, there we are, and continue down the road here. Now you're probably wondering, how am I going to handle those blossoms? So this is a very impressionistic approach here. And I'm going to bring that a little bit closer, switching to my green brush here. And just cut into those rows a little bit. It's not quite the color I'm looking for. Easy, you just make an adjustment by picking up a little bit of cobalt blue, just adding to the color there. There we go. And cutting into those violet tones. Now there's a lot of work that needs to be made in this transition here. That takes a little bit more work, but then again, what we're doing right now is we're blocking in. So let's get a few ideas on how to approach the blossoms before we sign off today. And let's see here, I'm just going to grab a round brush. And here's one. So you don't want to do the blossoms pure white to start off with. You always want to start off with the violet tones. So I'm just using this brush, and I'm just going to put some paint on here, and I'm just going to start to use this brush in a very sort of abstract way. So I'm just going to bring in some blossoms. As the blossoms are closer to the top, like here for example, you can add more of a pure white. But if you were to add pure white everywhere, then your blossoms really don't start to stand out. They just look flat. So you want to go back into the purples and the light blues, and you want to start to integrate those first before you do any pure white strokes. Now it's a bit premature for me to put pure white strokes on, but I'm just going to give you a little bit of an idea on what that might look like, just so that you know what to do. And you can see how I'm developing the rest of those branches. So it goes over top of the green that you laid in earlier. But you have to have that green in there because that's going to make a big difference. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll take a flat brush and I will just skip along, something like this. So I'm doing the shadow ones first. I just flipped my brush so that I got a cornered edge, something like that. So that's the beginning of getting those cherry blossoms in, like this, and bring that down. And I'm going to use my brush here and just bring it in and just pull some of that out a little. But that gives you a little bit of an idea on how you would approach that. And a little bit more. It's really hard for me to quit at this point, by the way. So I want to do just a little bit more over here. That's dry enough for me to go into. And again, you don't want to start off with pure white. It might look like white from your standpoint, but it's not pure white. The pure white is later. And I'm just flipping the corner here and getting the tops of those trees and then working my way down until I'm happy with the look. Now there's a lot of work to do on this painting, but you've got little snippets everywhere of how you would handle something like this. And then there's the integration of the road here. I can do a tiny bit more there, just because those kinds of things tend to get to me. But I don't want to make this video too long, because then I'm afraid I'm going to lose your interest. Thanks again for joining me today on this Okanagan spring demonstration. And I'll show you what it looks like right now. Like, there's a lot of different things that I covered in this little painting, but it has a long way to go. But so you're seeing it now. I'll get it completed in the next few days, and then you'll be able to visualize it for yourself. A completed Okanagan spring painting. Thanks again for joining in. Bye for now.